a strong and successful labor union based in San Bernardino that represents over 14,000 hardworking people across the Inland Empire. The Teamsters are ready to help you organize for better pay, increased benefits, and improved working conditions. Reach out to Teamsters 1932 at teamsters1932.org/organize to speak with an organizer today. Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting teamsters1932.org/organize to start today.
Are you graduating high school soon and wondering what to do next? College is one option, but why not consider the high-paying jobs made possible by union power? Labor Union Teamsters Local 1932 has opened a training center to get you into the high school to high-paying job pipeline. You'll learn all the skills needed to excel in opportunities across industries. Visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Want to talk about something to start off that angry again, and it's this book burning stuff that's just driving me nuts. Look, we can have a discussion if there's really something that you have a real problem with, and you can articulate that problem. Other than just no, that's not really an argument. And I'm pointing to Florida. Florida is at the center of the book banning. And look, it's happening all across the country. And this kind of stuff pops up occasionally when you want to rile up the dim. But this one gets my attention. Because if you remember 2021, the inauguration, Joe Biden's inauguration, had a young black woman poet, the youngest poet to read at a presidential inauguration since, I guess, since the Kennedy era and Robert Frost. But this woman, Amanda Gorman, read her speech, read her poem, and they published it and they put it in a whole bunch of schools because it's inspirational. I mean, I'm reading through it and I'm like, wow, I forgot how inspirational this was. I watched it, but I don't remember. I don't remember it being, this uplifting until I read it. The reason I bring this up, Florida and book banning, and this woman's poem, because you know where this is going, right? Some idiot challenged it, and the school, acquiesced. You look at Miami-Dade County, the public school there, fourth largest school district in the by enrollment in the entire nation. Evidently, they've moved. They've said they haven't banned it. It's not completely out of the school. No, we didn't take it all the way out. Evidently, it's in a media center. I'm gonna guess behind glass and a lock and key and in a vault, so where no one can ever get to it. And the reason I bring this up is the challenge that was issued. Again, if you make a cogent argument about why something is bad, and look, there's some things that have some sexual content for younger readers that you might go, yeah, there's a problem here. Maybe we should push this off. And I'm with you on some of that. Some of it. But this one, oh boy, it took a lot of time to fill this one out. Took a lot of time. Question number one. What do you object? Now, you expect, right? You would expect it to be, well, I didn't like this, and I think this is bad, and this is bad, and you would expect that, right? Left this part blank. Don't know why this person objects to this poem being in the public school? The number two, why do you object to this material? It's not educational and have indirectly hate messages. What? It is not educational and have indirectly hate messages. So looked at page 12 and 13. I didn't see it. Other than maybe that this is a black woman who read the poem and that her name's on the, that's all I could come up with. Question 3, did you review all the material? Simple yes. Are you aware of professional reviews on this material? I don't need it. What strength do you perceive in this material? Blank. For what age group would you recommend this material? Not for schools. So this woman's poem that she read to the entire country at a presidential inauguration in front of millions of people, it should not be in schools at all. Not just saying, hey, I don't think this is for kindergartners. I don't think this is for first graders. Not that they could read it, but not at all. Not at all. Not for schools. It's bad. It's bad for schools. What do you believe is the function of this material? Cause confusion and indoctrinate students. Oh. In its place, what material would you recommend that would result in the same outcome? Blank. That's the entire form. Now, a thoughtful person might go, have a something that you could point to that goes, oh, there's a problem here. My problem is with the school district for even looking at this. So one person, just one person, can make a complaint and have this book moved away from people. Now you go, well, what horrible things did this writer have to say? Simply ask the question, where can we find light in this never-ending shade the loss? And she talks about, history. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. I know, that's offensive, isn't it? Oh my gosh. She writes that even as we grieve, we grew. Even as we hurt, we hoped. Even as we tried. That will forever be tied together victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Oh my goodness. They're indoctrinating children to get along? Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we are to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. Oh my goodness. Maybe this is what it was. There's something about religion in there. Maybe that's what upset her. Now I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. But heaven forbid that we talk about coming together and not fighting and killing each other, and that we build bridges. Heaven forbid. I know this is not the conservative message, which could be part of it. The author writes, for while we have our eyes on the future, our history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. That must be that R word that they don't understand. And the thing that gets me is none of this is outrageous. If we merge mercy with might and might with rights, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. I know that's horrible. Horrible, isn't it? Concluding with, we will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there was always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. How offensive. This is offensive. Has to be taken out of the schools. And again, I come back to, it's the loudest It's the most ridiculous. It's the most violent people who get. It's always the squeaky wheel getting the grease. And I look at this and I'm going, what kind of crazy lunatic would do this? Oh yeah, our Moms for Liberty groups, because it's not about the poem, it's not about a book, it's not about any of this. It's about intimidation. It's about showing force that we're gonna put you in your place, and we're gonna shut down any education. Because heaven forbid we want critical thinking students. Heaven forbid we want, I don't know, critical thinking adults to lead this country into the future. Heaven forbid. And as I said, the loud and the crazy, they're winning because we're not speaking up. There aren't enough of us speaking up and saying, this is outrageous. This is ridiculous. I point to Target. Target evidently is now the new Bud Light. Evidently in their stores they had LGBTQ stuff. I don't know what. But there was stuff promoting Pride Month or whatever it is that they're doing. This blows my mind, and I wish this would happen in front of me. Evidently, you get these kooks and these nitwits going into these stores and berating the workers because there's something on the shelf that they don't like. Look, I go into the grocery store, and they've got broccoli. They've got asparagus. They've got cauliflower. They've got a whole bunch of stuff I don't like. And do you know what I do? I walk right by it. Doesn't matter to me at all. But this is not about the merchandise. This is about the point. This is about showing their force. This is about the violence of being in someone's face. And Target is acquiescing. Target is backing down, and this is what they do. Because look, they don't want their workers abused. They don't want their workers yelled at. They don't want them intimidated. They want people who are barely making minimum wage to do their job and go home without the kind of harassment that this. And I got to tell you, I wish this would happen in front of me. Because what is wrong with somebody who would do this to these workers? Now, good on Gavin Newsom, who has called out Target for being, for saying, look, explain this to me. Why is this? Why are you doing this? Stand up to bullies. We used to be a country that stood up to bullies. And these people are bullies. Because there's only a handful of them. Look, I mean, they're the loudest. They get the most attention. They're well funded by billionaires. But there are more sane, rational people in this country to stop this kind of nonsense. Look, the LGBTQ stuff, not my issue. Not at all. But this is going back to the old labor frame of an injury to one being an injury to all. If you're going to go after these folks, eventually, I know I'm on the list. I know we're all on the list. Because you can never be pure enough. You can never be, free from crazy. For instance, there's a state representative in Tennessee. Her name is Susan Lynn. And as the one group calls her, the Republican from QAnon, she's thrilled that the company she works for, the almost 300 people, they're no longer going to shop at Target. Not with the company's credit card. No. The company's going to show Target. How dare they put glitter scarves on the shelves? How dare they put size 13 pink pumps? How dare. I don't even know that they've got those things, to be honest. But this is where sane, rational people have got to vote people like Susan Lynn out in Tennessee, if you're listening, and the rest of the Republican establishment who uses this to divide, uses this to tear us apart. It's time. It's time for us to say enough already and to stand up to bullies wherever they are. And again, here's the thing. Please, if you're dumb enough to go into a Target and yell at the clerk over something like this, please do it in front of me. Oh, because I so want to be there so that I can mock and humiliate you just as much as you deserve. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program, grab the podcast. Quick break. Right back.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our...
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Kurt on line 1 from Akron. Kurt, what's on your mind, brother? I guess Kurt went off the line. It happens. I'm sure that that Ron DeSantis is changing his mind on what should be the future of his campaign. I'm sure that, I'm pretty sure that he's changing where he should be doing it. Because if you think about it, I think he thought he was going to shock the world by going over to Twitter. Turns out, not so good. Got about 500,000 people, I guess, to show up on Twitter for his big announcement. He was announcing he's going to be president, going to run for president. Now, had he gone over to Fox, he'd probably gotten 3 million views and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Had he used one of the ABC, NBC, CBS, one of those, probably got 6-8 million views, probably more. Probably gotten more at CNN. And the thing is here's a guy who's probably the most unlikable guy to begin with, and he does it in an audio-only format on Twitter. And there's just so much fun to go with that. Because look, what Twitter showed is that Elon Musk, what happened today, Elon Musk spent $44 billion proving that Twitter doesn't have any reach, that he has destroyed it. And as I've said, anyone with a blue check mark, anyone who is paying him, you should drop that immediately because there isn't much left. Now, understand, this was supposed to be Musk taking over for Murdoch. This was supposed to be Musk taking over and running the media gamut. This was supposed to be him, getting the juice, man. This was supposed to be him leading the message. And well, not so much. And it's been kind of bad for him because it didn't work today. So and he's been taking a beating on all the people that they fired. Maybe those people could have helped. Now, the weird thing is DeSantis did this in an audio-only format, which made me think, look, he's not a likable guy. He's kind of dorky and awkward. So maybe that was, hey, we're going to go back 80 years and do a fireside chat on the radio. Okay, that's not how elections are run today, but good luck on that. But it got me to thinking, here's a guy who, if you remember George W. Bush, everyone was like, I'd like to have a beer with that guy. And same thing with Trump. Yeah, I'd like to have a beer with that guy. That's kind of the Republican voters' frame. Yeah, he's a good guy. I'd like to have a beer with him. I don't know anyone who's going to want to have a beer with Ron DeSantis. I just don't. But the launch crashed. Let's go to the phone. It's got Alice on line too. Alice, how you doing?
I'm doing.
You're not totally insane?
Borderline.
What's on your mind?
I think the problem going on is we're tired of the right wingers, but a majority of us have that light and love thing going, where it's, oh, if we just send them light and love and are understanding, they'll stop.
No.
They're never going to stop.
No, there's only one way you take out a bully. A bully only understands one thing, and that's force. You got to stand up to the bullies.
Absolutely. I used to tell my son, and I told my grandkids, and in fact my granddaughter, who looks and acts like me, picked it right up when she was 4. But I used to tell them there are some people that do not understand common courtesy, and they see it as a sign of weakness, and unfortunately the only thing they understand is a punch in the mouth. And it's true. So, yeah, I think, sooner or later, people are going to have to wake up and go, you know what? We're going to have to just stand up, tell them, shut up, sit down, and throw hissy fits. Because otherwise, we're going to be back in the Middle Ages. But have a good evening, Rick.
Thanks, Alice. Appreciate the call. No, I mean, the sad reality is that there's only one way to stop this, and that's for all of us, the sane, the rational, the silent majority, to go to the ballot box and throw these bums out, every single one of them. And starting with Trump, if he's elected, he truthed out today, and this is the most bizarre thing that I've seen. He says, "quote Rob," in quotation marks, Rob. I think he meant Ron. I'm gonna give him a pass for misspelling. Maybe his finger was no, never mind. He says, "Rob, my red button is bigger, better, stronger, and is working." Truth. He tried to remind everybody that he's talking about Truth. His Truth Social. Yours does not. And then in parentheses, he writes, "Per my conversation with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, soon to become my friend." I don't know what any of that means. But this guy's going to run to be president. And look, his numbers are double that of DeSantis's. I don't think DeSantis is the guy. I think if Trump doesn't end up in jail, it's going to be him. But DeSantis is one of those guys that I'm sorry, he just doesn't have a personality. And he the Republican refrain has always been, "There's a guy I want to have a beer with." This ain't that guy. Now, the rich people, there's some rich people who are backing him, who have a, what did they say, a $200 million budget they're planning on putting together? So a $200 million budget to run DeSantis for president. I'm going, wow, that's a lot of money. Now, you remember at the very beginning, Jeb Bush, $50 million to start his, and you saw how quickly he flamed out. So I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out, because DeSantis is doing all of the fascistic kind of crazy things that I think the extreme of the extreme right wants. I don't think most Republicans really understand how far their party has gone off the rails. But DeSantis is the guy who will give the crazy of the crazy everything that they want. I just don't think that the rest of the party is there yet. Now, again, for me, this whole thing that Musk has got to be losing his mind, and the woman who's the new CEO, this Linda Yarcino, she's got to be really losing her mind, because she gave up a really lucrative gig to come take what is now. Because if you're an advertiser, the birdcage is open. They pulled the curtain back on Twitter. There's literally nothing there. And for Elon Musk's 120 million followers, you go, really? How many of those are made up? How much of that is BS? I'm going to say the bird flew the coop. If you got a blue check, if I'm you, I'm saving my $8 a month, because you're just throwing it down the hole. Want to hear your thoughts, though? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Right back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1959. That was the day Operation Humanity marched in support of New York City hospital workers fighting for union recognition and bargaining rights at area voluntary hospitals. Workers organizing with Local 1199 had been on strike since May 8th and called on the public to support them in their efforts. They pointed out that the 30,000 overwhelmingly black and Latino workers were fighting against economic exploitation and discrimination. Striking workers condemned their paltry wages, which averaged $21 less a week than workers at city hospitals. They added they had no job security or benefits and were not even eligible for unemployment. The Central Labor Council, the NAACP, and area civil rights activists all supported the march. In their book, Upheaval in the Quiet Zone, Leon Fink and Brian Greenberg note that a union largely led by Jews had squared off against hospitals directed by the scions of the city's Jewish community, to the degree that it was a family affair. The 1959 fight thus took on the bitterness of a civil war. As well, Catholic trade union leaders decried the anti-union fervor of hospitals run by the Archdiocese. Fink and Greenberg illustrate the support of fiery Mike Quill, president of TWU Local 100, who denounced hospital trustees as worse than famed segregationist Governor Orville Faubus of Arkansas. Weeks into the strike, area trade unions supplied reinforcements in the form of donations, loans, and groceries. Local IBEW members assessed themselves $1 a week for the strikers. Many unions regularly joined picket lines in support. Though the strike would fail to secure union recognition and collective bargaining rights, there were minimal gains. Solidarity galvanized the membership for future battles. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
It's an odd marketing strategy for an industry to assail its own customers. Yet, that's what the monopolistic meatpacking industry, led by such huge conglomerates as Tyson, Smithfield, JBS, and Hormel, that control nearly 70% of America's pork market, is doing. Just shut up and eat your bacon, the industry shrieks. The target of their corporate tantrum is the growing grassroots movement of consumers, animal rights advocates, farmers, and others who are dismayed and disgusted by big pork's profiteering on animal cruelty. None of your business, shout the executives, lobbyists, lawyers, and far-rent politicians who run the torturous system. But gutsy groups like the Humane Society made their way inside the industry's animal factories, videoing such mass horrors as thousands of pregnant sows locked for 16 weeks at a time in gestation crates so small the animals can't even turn around. In 2018, such exposés prompted 60% of California voters to approve a ballot initiative outlawing the use of these inhumane crates. Adding plutocratic stupidity to their greed, the pork barons then sued the people for overreaching their power. Yes, the pork profiteers actually asserted that democracy, i.e. people power, must not interfere with, quote, sound business practices. Never mind that few of us uncorporatized commoners consider animal suffering to be a sound practice. Even the corporate coddling Supreme Court gagged at the industry's claim that it has the sovereign power to dictate what type of pork chops are available to the public. This month, in an odd-fellow 5-4 decision rendered by 2 progressive judges and 3 corporatists, the court ruled that policy choices like these usually belong to the people. Well, yes, and to the animals. This is Jim Hightower saying, here's an example of how grassroots activism matters in important ways. To stay involved, go to humanesociety.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, another story out of Florida. Evidently, a woman driving, I think the report said 6 kids, was shot and killed by, I guess it's a road rage incident. The other person involved, there's some kind of dispute, but the guy shoots this woman while driving 6 kids. And again, we have this stuff happen. You know, this is now welcome to America. This is what happens. But in this case, my mind went to this place of, you know, if all 6 of those kids had guns and the woman had a gun, there would be 7 guns against 1. And if I use Jon Stewart's, theory of more guns, more safety, this would be peak safety. These people should have been safe, right? I know, it sounds ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But what else can we come up with? Thoughts and prayers ain't working anymore. And today is the 1 year anniversary of the deadly shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And there are two things I remember. One, cops didn't do anything while the gunfire was going on. And two, and my heart breaks thinking about it, is the family had to identify their child simply by finding the green shoes, the green tennis shoes. That just heartbreaking. And here to share some thoughts on just how crazy all of this is, I've asked Nick Wilson to come talk with us. Nick is the Senior Director of the Gun Violence Prevention Program at the Center for American Progress, AmericanProgress.org, their website. Nick, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me, Rick, on this solemn occasion.
So, I'm looking at this, and I got to tell you, it didn't get any better. For all of these horrible tragedies, one piled on top of another, you would think maybe we would do something, but it ain't happening.
It's easy to feel pessimistic, especially considering places like Texas after the shooting in Uvalde a year ago, and just in the past month and a half, we've had the Cleveland, Texas shooting, and then the Outlet Mall shooting in Allen, Texas, and still, these kind of MAGA Republicans are still afraid to stand up to the gun lobby and do something. But I am optimistic that although it shouldn't have taken such a horrible tragedy of 19 children shot, plus 2 teachers, plus the perpetrator's grandmother to die, Congress did finally pass its first meaningful gun violence prevention bill in 30 years. It didn't go far enough, but a lot of it, we were seeing some effects of those implementation. And we've seen some states, that are honestly more Democratic controlled, like Michigan and Minnesota, really passing these life-saving legislation, and states like New York finding ways to support gun violence survivors. So it's a mixed bag. The red states are getting redder at weakening gun laws, and we're seeing more of those tragic shootings like in Florida that you mentioned. But we're seeing progress, at least in a lot of blue states.
The president tweeted out today that since Uvalde, in the last year, our country has experienced more than 650 mass shootings and well over 40,000 deaths due to gun violence. He says we cannot end this epidemic until Congress passes common sense gun safety laws that keep weapons of war off our streets and out of dangerous hands. We've been hearing this refrain for years now. It doesn't seem to be getting us anywhere yet, and I know you said you're optimistic. I don't think I'm as optimistic as you are, especially on days like today and these anniversaries that just seem to be coming day after day after day of remembering how big of a failure we've been in addressing this.
Yeah, there's definitely frustration from the gun violence prevention movement. Things like the assault weapon ban that the whole movement and survivors have rallied around. We still can't get all the Democrats in the Senate to support it. But it's been nice to have President Biden be a very vocal champion. He realized he cares about the issue, but he also realized that it's a winning issue, and people that support gun safety, and especially young people, came out to the polls in the midterms. And so we're going to keep putting pressure on both Democrats and Republicans to really stand up to the gun lobby and pass common sense gun laws.
What do you say to the person, though, Nick, who goes, you know what, hey, this is just the price of living in a free country where we have the right to bear arms. This is just it's our Constitution. This is just the reality. There's nothing we can do about this, and banning guns is not the answer. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I think it's, I talk to people that, they come up and they're like, we completely are opposed to everything. You're gun grabbers, Second Amendment. And it's pretty easy within a couple of minutes to find common ground that, we're not trying to take anyone's guns away. But we do know that there's research-based ways to reduce the risk of so many guns in our country. And, basic going through a background check, if you're going to carry a gun, show that you've done live fire training and safety training and know the laws. People realize that there are, reasonable restrictions we can put on, just like for cars, you have to have insurance and a license and take a test. We're just asking for reasonable accommodations for the leading cause of death for children in the country.
So let me ask you this, because I read a really good op-ed over at the New York Times. A guy had studied gun instructors, and he said that, and this is the thing that I've known from the beginning, is that the people in this gun world, the people who I call gun fetishists, they're afraid of around every corner. Fear is in every moment of their life. They believe around every corner there's a bad guy. They can't go to the bathroom without their gun, which is why you saw cases recently of a guy not answering his doorbell, just shooting somebody, or someone pulls into the driveway and shooting because they've got it in their head that around every corner is danger, every stranger's danger. Um, I don't know that training them is going to help get them to a place of being safer with guns. I fear we're going to be sending more people into that mill to train them that, hey, you can't go to the bathroom without your gun. You can't go into the store or the restaurant or your kid's birthday party. Got to have it right there. I fear we're feeding people into that machine. I'm curious your thoughts.
That's an excellent point. And my mind instantly went to, the criminal justice reform movement talks a lot about police training, but if they're being trained to be afraid of every interaction, partly because guns are everywhere, we see more people reaching for their gun as opposed to de-escalating or using less lethal force. And so if we continue to have these instructors, and unfortunately, you have to almost always be an NRA, instructor, and there's this incentive, and there's the NRA and the gun lobby have really worked over the past decade to really use fear to sell more guns as more people move to the cities and less hunting and sportsmanship has become less part of everyday culture for Americans. They needed to find ways to make more money, and they could do that by selling fear. And they hired an ad agency to help them figure out, how do we sell guns to people that never wanted to buy guns before. And they came up with something literally called weaponless Wendy, and how they need to go after women, saying that they're going to be in danger and the only way to protect themselves is with a gun. And now, since some of the shootings and anti-Asian hate, like Monterey Park, we've seen that they're targeting the Asian American community, saying like, you need to buy guns to protect yourselves from the white supremacists that we're selling guns to. And it's this fear that really is leading to these senseless violence when people, would rather shoot before asking any questions.
Yeah, I mean, because I think some of our other laws we've got to be looking into, like these idiotic stand your ground laws. To me, this is a giant driver of some of this in my view as well. Because hey, I got the right to stand my ground. I don't have to back up, and I blame this on the jury in Florida, oddly enough, for the George Zimmerman thing. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't know how old you are, but when I was a kid, if you started a fight and you got beat up, you deserved it. There was no, hey, I had to shoot them because now I was afraid. No, you got beat up because you were stupid. Now we're telling people you can cause trouble, you can start an altercation, and oh, gee, I felt afraid. Now I got to shoot them. There's something screwed up with that kind of a law.
Exactly. And after the Zimmerman case, it actually, people got politically very upset, and it stopped happening for a while. And now these MAGA states have dusting them off, and they're being passed in more and more states. And no one on our side is saying that you don't have a right to defend yourself, but if you can retreat or let the other person retreat, and you shouldn't go out looking for trouble, that's not okay. And sometimes even the law, they're breaking the law, but they feel like they have a license to kill because they think that you can just shoot anytime. And so it's become a real concern. And to reference the case in Miami that you mentioned, Florida recently passed permitless carry. There's now 26 states where you can carry a firearm without any license, any background check, any proof that you've ever fired a gun, that you know when to retreat, when you can stand your ground. And it's leading to road rage instances or people picking a fight. We've seen incidences where two people will be driving, they're both armed, and one will get mad, and so they'll start shooting each other, and they hit their children in the back seat. And these are completely, before you would have yelled, honked, or given the finger, and now children are dying because there's a lot of anger, and we don't know how to communicate, and we all have guns with us.
Yeah, that sounds like a great recipe. And also take it into the bars with you. Sounds like a lot of fun, as long as I'm not the one in the middle of it, because this is where my problem then becomes. I don't mind if two idiots are throwing shots at each other. I don't care. This is how we thin the herd. This is how you get rid of the dumb people. My problem is they're both bad shots, and you pointed out the one story that I point to often. These two idiots are shooting at each other, and they shot each other's kids. That would be my luck. I'd be the one getting shot by both of them. I'd be the one dying, and they go, oh, well, it happens. Living in a free country.
and they're using their assault weapons, saying it's great for self-defense, but the velocity of the bullet means it's going through a wall and hitting someone else next door. It's ridiculous when people are thinking that they're in a movie and they are being the hero with a gun.
So if you had your druthers, Nick, and you're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Nick Wilson, he's the senior director of the gun violence prevention program there at the Center for American Progress, AmericanProgress.org, the website if you want to check out the work that they do. If you had your magic wand, what should Joe Biden do? What would you move forward on that you think would help us cut down on the number of gun deaths? Because you're never going to stop them entirely, right? It's never going to end, but we could diminish some of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you do?
There's a lot of we've been seeing a lot of exciting legislation passing at the state level, which allows us to hold the gun industry accountable. The NRA got Congress years ago to write in an exemption that gives them more protections from lawsuits than any other industry in the country. So when a gun violence, survivor can't even get their day in court because of negligent practices from a dealer or a manufacturer, they can't even get their day in court. And the way we've gotten car crashes and other kind of consumer hazards safer and the deaths down is that we've used lawsuits to require airbags and seatbelts and common safety devices, but those are not available to the gun industry. And so we've been calling on Congress and President Biden to repeal these special immunities. President Biden, I believe he's been doing all he can with executive orders. His last one really challenged the ATF to get as close to universal background checks as possible by not allowing all these people that are selling at gun shows and online and saying, "Oh, I'm not a gun dealer. I just sell a couple hundred guns a year for a profit." Make them actually have to keep records and follow the laws. And so there's a few things that are happening. One thing he's doing that he can do without Congress is doing more to support gun violence survivors. There's a lot of, after these shootings, there's not a lot of access to paying for medical bills, for trauma recovery, mental health, and the long costs over the years and the trauma that you see in communities like Uvalde, like Buffalo, that are transformed after these mass shootings. That you need more than just a couple of months of resources. We need insane investments because the trauma just recycles the violence. And so I know that's something that the administration is working on, and we're hoping to see more money invested in preventing the next shooting by supporting our communities now.
Yeah, I don't know how you get through something like this. And I know as one survivor told me, you get up. I mean, you don't have a choice. But I don't know how, as a parent, having to identify your child by the tennis shoes that they wear, I don't know how you wake up the next morning and move forward after having that happen to you.
Just today, next month is Gun Violence Survivors Month, and I brought in a couple mothers from Baltimore. One have lost two sons to gun violence, one whose son was having a mental health crisis, Kevin Cooper, and the police shot him. They were afraid of his child. And just, it's heartbreaking to hear their stories, but it's so important that we keep their children's memories alive and that they use their stories to help prevent the next parent from having to go through that tragedy. And so I'm really inspired every day, and that's what gives me motivation to keep working, even though sometimes, it's very easy to get frustrated with the Supreme Court or the Senate. But we know in the long run, we're going to win with the young people. And as more gun violence, unfortunately, impacts more and more of us, we're going to have an unstoppable mass to start passing these laws.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, you hear about these police shootings, and I try and put myself in their position. With the amount of gun violence going on, the number of guns on the streets, this idea that there's danger around every corner. You got these itchy trigger finger people. I have some sympathy for policemen. I do, and as I've said a million times, I support the police wholeheartedly when they're not wrong. They have to be held accountable when they are, because we do give them so much privilege and so much power. But I got to tell you, the fact that there are so many guns, I don't know how we get to, and I love the way Jon Stewart put it, when do we get to peak safety? And I joked, I shouldn't have joked, but I made the statement earlier, that if the 6 kids in that car would have had guns, maybe the woman wouldn't have died, which is insane to think that way, but there are people who do.
Yeah. The part of the reason why we've seen this uptick in violence the past few years, and luckily it's finally trending downwards, but it was because there were guns everywhere, and uh, the major city chiefs of police officers around the country have actually been much more vocal, even in deep red states, because they know that they're the ones that are responsible for keeping us safe, and they're the ones that are, might be outgunned by these individuals. And so, it's important that we support law enforcement because, they really have had their hands tied by a lot of these preemption laws and lack of regulations.
Yeah. Any actions? Well, let's finish up on the action. Anything we can do to help keep ourselves and others safe? Any action?
There's several things you can do. If you want to get more political, now's the time to call your senators and congressmen to support the assault weapon ban. A lot of the most exciting work is really happening at the state level, and in most states there are great statewide groups that you can join and learn more about how easy it is to testify in your state legislator or to write a letter or call someone. And honestly, if you live in a community where you know a lot of gun owners, you can help save lives by if you know someone is they got laid off or they're going through a divorce, they're going through a tough time, and you're worried about them. Maybe say, hey, can I temporarily take those firearms and keep them for safekeeping? We're not going to get the cops or the courts involved, but I just know that having a gun can be a risk, and if someone is in temporary crisis, maybe we can remove those firearms and help save a life, because suicide is one of the leading problems that we don't talk about enough.
No, now I'm thinking about all the people I know who have arsenals, and I'm imagining that conversation. They would probably shoot me, but it's one of those things. Nick, I appreciate the time. Good stuff. I hope you keep up the work. Hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
I'd love to. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks so much. Nick Wilson, he is the Senior Director of Gun Violence Prevention there at the Center for American Progress. AmericanProgress.org, the website, if you want to check out the work that they do. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1949. That was the day that a shotgun blast broke through a closed window and struck Victor Reuther as he sat reading a newspaper in his living room. Victor, along with his brothers Walter and Roy, were leaders of the United Auto Workers Union, one of the most powerful forces of the 20th century U.S. labor movement. During the 1930s, the three brothers moved to Detroit and became involved in the hard-fought efforts to bring unions to the Motor City. Victor got a job at the Kesley Hayes Wheel Company. He joined UAW Local 174. During the Flint sit-down strike against General Motors, Victor gave speeches to help rally the strikers. According to Mike Smith of Wayne State University, Victor, quote, had this deep resonating voice. He coupled that with a superb control of the language. And when he got up to give a speech, it was usually a beauty. Victor would go on to become the UAW's education director and international director. Roy took up the role of legislative director. Walter became the union's president. Their union leadership made many enemies for the three Reuther brothers. Walter was the victim of a gunshot attack in 1948 that permanently injured one of his arms. The next year, an unknown would-be assassin took aim at Victor. The blast hit Victor in the face. He lost his right eye, and the bullet smashed his jaw and collarbone. In his memoir, Victor wrote that he told the surgeon, quote, "They can take out my eye and take of an arm or a leg, but please fix up my tongue. I've got a living to make." Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
I was standing by gate 4 when I heard the people roar. They ain't gonna kick the auto workers around. It's that UAWCIO.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Look, this gun thing, at some point you've got to deal with a whole bunch of things. It's not just, hey, we're just going to ban guns. It's never going to happen. But, and then we didn't get into this, but, the reality is we see these kids getting shot all the time. Oh, there was a gun just laying around and the 4-year-old shot the 1-year-old. And does anybody go to jail? No. Oh, grandma was driving, the grandchild to daycare and, just slung her gun over the back of the seat. And the kid grabbed the gun and shot her through the does anybody, any accountability? I mean, this is the weird thing. There used to be a Republican Party that believed in responsibility. This is my frustration of the moment that we're in. Nobody wants to be responsible for anything. They want to point their finger at everybody else and blame everything, but nobody's taking responsibility for it. I mean, we're in the middle of this debt ceiling nonsense. I mean, this is really just stupid. And yet you've got a Republican Party who they're willing to crash this economy. I was having a conversation today with somebody who does investments, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. They'll come. They do this all the time. The 11th hour, they'll come up with a deal. It's not going to be a big deal. I'm going, are you so sure? Because a lot of people are not. Will Biden cave? Because the only way I see there being a deal happening is if Biden caves. And the weird thing is there was just a mammoth poll that came out and said half the country say that they feel they understand what raising the debt ceiling or not raising the debt ceiling means and what it would mean if we didn't. Half. I'm surprised that half are arrogant enough to think that they know, because I don't. What I do know is it's bad. I do know what happens when you don't pay your bills. I do know what happens when interest rates go up. I do know what happens when the brakes are slammed on and there isn't money going into families' pockets. I do kind of have a sense of what's going on. And there's part of me that goes, half the country doesn't know. Well, they're going to find out soon. Better save some rice and beans. Because the sad reality is, I truly believe our Republican friends don't care. They don't. They don't care what happens to your family. I say it all the time. Republicans hate working people. Look at the policies that they move. Look at the proposals that they've put forth and the things that they want to cut. Think of how deep and painful what Republicans are proposing is. This is what just angers me to no end. And the question is, how much longer are we going to put up with this kind of division? The red hat, blue hat stuff. When are we going to come back to the middle of the road and go, you know what? We've got some spending issues that maybe we should be looking at. At the barrel of a gun, that's not how you do that. Ready to crash not just our economy, but the global economy. Probably not the best place for that. And again, I go back to, this argument that I've heard from conservatives going, the China, be afraid of China and the BRIC countries, China, Russia, India, and Brazil. Be afraid of them because they're coming up with their own currency, and we should be concerned about that. In fact, we should be so concerned that we don't do dumb stuff like this. This is the kind of stuff that adds instability to a global economy. Not good. And I'm not an economist. It just doesn't make any sense. This isn't how you run a lemonade stand. But again, we have unserious people in Congress. Lauren Boebert in her comment, well, birth control was too expensive, so I'll have a kid because it's cheaper. What kind of GED math is that? I mean, look, I got 3 kids. They're expensive. I don't know what good enough diploma, math course that was, but she's wrong. She shouldn't be in Congress. But there they are, bringing all their ridiculous ideas. And who suffers? We do. That's my problem. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com.
These essentially agreed to take less water from the Colorado River.
Western states reach landmark agreement to stave off multi-decade drought crisis. World's lakes are shrinking due to human overuse and climate change. Plus,
last year's election in November changed everything.
Minnesota legislature poised to enact landmark environment and climate legislation.
All of those landmarks and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
It is the #1 challenge in the world, a civilizational challenge unprecedented in scale and scope. And it is really striking that as we begin the official 2024 campaign, this issue, the most important one, the central civilizational challenge of our time, is utterly and completely absent and ignored from all Republican political campaign